Hi. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the nature of reality. And some folks tend to think that the nature of reality is computer based and that we're living in a simulation, which may be the case, but either way, you need to consider the fact that perception of reality is also individual, that our combined perception of our reality is communal. So, what I mean by that is that everyone in this world that is currently living on this earth is perceiving reality from their own individual standpoint, simultaneously while creating the reality itself through their own experience and perception for everyone else. Um, it's the same thought process that gave the creator the ability to manifest reality just by speaking it into being through the action of vocal alchemy. Now, what brought this world into being may have been something, or may be something super intelligent and not like us, but ultimately similar because we are made in his image, or so to be said in the Bible, we're made in the image of God. Um, to the nature of reality, as far as it being different dimensional shapes and different dimensional areas or layers that we can't perceive, the truth is the perception that we have isn't accurate because it is a perception is based on your ability to perceive reality as an individual. Now, when you're perceiving your individual reality, you're creating your own world and your own universe and galaxy and so forth and so on by the expansion of your knowledge to stretch out your understanding onto certain things means to expand your universe of thought. What creates everything around you is your simple observation of it. That's also known as the observer effect in the world of physics. At the smallest and most rudimentary levels, that certain particles don't take shape or direction of polar north or south or magnetic vibration until they are observed by a human or the viewer or the experimenter. So, with that being said, knowing that that is true, we also can infer from that that the same can be said about our universe and our galaxy. It's not in any state, shape, way, fashion, or form real until we are observing it. Now, the reason that the observer is the mechanism that creates and or dissipates a reality based on its observation is because this is a constructed reality. Now, the constructed reality we live upon, that we live in, is different for each person. That also creates a subset of perceptions that also coexist with other people's perceptions, which also interlaces with the communal perception or the perceived world that creates the matrix we live in today. So the discovery of alternate dimensions and different universes could be the stumbling upon the consciousness of other people, not necessarily the discovery of different dimensions, but the communal existence of different perceptions of reality based on each person's avatar or their typical life force that generates their own perception. In that little nugget of thought there are some kind of contradictory factors in some of the presentation of reality as it presents itself to us. Now, we know that if we do anything in our reality that could come to harm us or kill us, in a sense, when you fire a gun to your foot, you will put a hole in it. That's the rules and set for this reality and the physics we live in. We're governed by those physics, whether we want to or not. It does control us, whether we want it to or not. It is in control, and the rules of physics are not breakable, not in a sense that they can be rewritten or changed by anyone for a long period of time. I mean, they can be temporarily changed. So that means you can jump from one area to another through temporal existence. Maybe time travel into the future is possible, but time travel in the past may not be. So it would stand to reason that if you could dial in frequencies to travel further in time, you know that frequency dilation dissipates after a certain amount of time. So that means that the vibration level of a planet, say this existence we have, does eventually slow down to not vibrate at all, and it turns back up the other direction to dilate again. The wave, it has peaks and valleys, and each different peak and valley is a different vibration and frequency dilation and resonance. So once you get to that point of resonance, you can then home into the peak or home into the valley and take the trip to the future based on that precise measurement. That's theoretical, at least my theory on it. But I'm not going to go too deep into that because it's a lot to explain, and I don't really have a whole lot of time to do that. I wanted to try to keep the videos short and relatively easy to digest. With the reality thought and aspect on what we are living through, may be constructed by numbers. And if you look down as far as you can, then you can see numbers, zeros and ones, digits that comprise everything in our reality. Well, it's often said that art imitates life, imitates art, and so on and so forth, which we can see that was predicted by the movie The Matrix, that the interface they have to use, because the translators that translate the Matrix into a viewable program work for the machines. They don't work for the humans. So to interface with the Matrix as a human outside of the Matrix, you must view it through the window of zeros and ones streaming it down your screen as it was depicted in the film. That may or may not be really the case in this reality, seeing as how our perception of things as they are is just a mass of electrons, your body, pressing against the magnetized or electronically magnetized electrons of the object you're pressing against. You can't go through it, but with enough force you can break it. And if you meet the resonance with your own frequency and match it to the table, you could probably be contained within the frequency itself and then go in the table or through it with your hand and not be damaged or, have any danger to your life or well-being. Maintenance of homeostasis, so to speak. But further proof of that is the experimentation done on the ship that supposedly time traveled with slip through dimensions. And when it came back, there were people embedded in the hull of the ship that were joined with it. I believe they called that the Philadelphia experiment. That was the common or more well-known name. The same thing can be said about the device that Hitler and Himmler and all of his scientists designed, known as the Glock, or the bell. The bell itself, its entire existence was designed around frequency and resonance. So this was also something that was commonly known back in the 1800s. I would say probably late 1800s, 1890s, maybe earlier. I haven't seen much evidence to that, but the earliest post I'd seen about something like that was 1890 to 1880, 88 or 87, as far back as I could tell. Now, that is just because I was using Google for most of my searches, and then when I went to the library, the oldest thing I could find was 1890. Again, no names were mentioned in this publication. It was just a report in a little snippet of copied pieces of newspaper that were loaded into the computer that I looked up. So not real good cataloging for the library anyhow. But the new current view of this type of reality was also discussed and understood by certain scientists and physicists in our world today that know that this is possible using certain apparatus. I've read a little bit about the Project Looking Glass, which is similar to a Stargate or a portal, both of which are pretty conspiratorially minded folks would follow that directly down the rabbit hole and say, well, you're full of it now because you said Stargate. But the truth of the matter is, folks, these things do exist and have existed for thousands of years. So what they are used for is up to anybody's guess, because the ones that are allowed for the public to be seen aren't functioning. So there's no real proof to the purpose of the Stargate, whether it's going to be something you can walk through or something you can see into and view your own future through your own perception. Because the concept of Looking Glass is that it's something that depicts the future through the perception or perceived reality of the viewer, not an accurate depiction of the future for the community or the communal perception. So if we were all to look through the looking glass at the same time, that would give us a more accurate depiction of the future based on all of our combined destinies, or current paths and logic and whatnot. Going forward from that, you can also assume that there's a possibility for dilation of these frequencies to such a way or to such a degree to send objects through space and time, which is definitely something that I'm sure that has been dabbled around with based on the experiments with resonant vibration. Nikola Tesla also dabbled a little bit in this technology. He gave us a lot of things: free energy devices, over unity devices, and one-to-one ratio devices that produce perfect unity. Those things he did invent, and the technology was available, but wasn't completed. Tesla's thought processes on a lot of those things did comprise to their modern interpretations, and to some of the more joking videos on YouTube that seem to be more fakery than real. But the truth of the matter is, it's not that simple to make an over unity device, and it's not that easy to just wind copper wire around a magnetic loop that creates it. You can create the engine for that, a toroidal sphere, of course. You can create a toroidal device with that same setup, but you're still going to need something to supply it with power. Now, an over unity device produces the same amount of energy that it consumes, and produces it at a rate that is something that you will never need to refuel it. It's just overcompensating each time. Produces just enough to stay working and also be of use to anyone around it. Now, this was also a debunkable video in some cases in YouTube, because people either built it wrong or used improper materials or didn't use something or copper wire that was intended for electrical purposes. Copper wire for your stove or for your refrigerator is not the same thing as copper wire used for electronics. And if you are familiar with electronics, you know that copper is not the best. The best metal used for anything electronic is either gold, pure gold, or graphene. That's pretty much it. Graphene can store data. Water can store data. There's plenty of proof that other materials can hold data just as well as graphene can, but the utilization of that ability is not predicated in our current understanding. So what we can understand about reality now is that though it may appear that there are dimensions that appear to be different from the one we live in, the dimensions may just be an example or an existence of someone else's perception of the same reality. So you could be bumping into someone else's perception of that reality based on your measurement. Alternate dimensions and other layers to dimensionality. You may be misphrasing that as layers of existence or planes of existence that were outlined and delineated in the Bible, as well as other religious texts in the past. But some of what is contained in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth explains a little bit of that to almost a layman's degree. So the existence of planes and portals or veils to separate those planes from where we are right now, presently, and where we can be if we understand each level of our existence, is pretty much left up to our own ability to understand the difference between dimension and perception. So because we have dimensions, we have 4 dimensions or 5 dimensions. Those are dimensions in which you can travel, the spatial dimensions. So actual dimensions that they said exist or claim to exist may or may not be perception. Now, that's also just a theory of mine. I'm not saying that it is fact. I'm saying that it is theory. This was a talk on a view of reality, or my opinion of reality, and this is part 1 of the video. So I will gather more information, do some further research, and talk about different things on the second part of the videos. You can look for probably sometime next week, I would say on Friday maybe. I'm going to try to keep my science talks to each Friday. Unless, of course, I'm working, then I'll have to move it to Saturday or whatever. But you'll know beforehand what day the broadcast will happen for the video. This one is live, so I'm going to end it in about probably a few seconds or so, but part one of the reality talk is now over. So with that being said, I would like to leave you guys with those thoughts, and I hope you have a wonderful day and a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Thanks again.